situation in Malaysia? And how do we use big data to assist us in our decision making, not only for survival, but also to capture the most out of the available market? We also will look at tourism as a whole. What are the things we can control for the benefit of our entire industry? And what are the threats that we should be cautious of? We will also look at how tourism is also affected by the property market, more so post-COVID-19. We believe future demand would be driven and reinforced by confidence, and hotels would be the natural choice in favor over homestays and, of course, Airbnb. With the property glut expected to get worse, will the supply of tourism accommodation be further diluted? Joining us to share their insights, expertise, and ideas are three panelists from different fields whom I will introduce along the way. Our very first speaker is Mr. Lee Heng Gui. Mr. Lee is the Executive Director of Social Economic Research Center. He has over 30 years of professional experience as an economist, with 12 years in Bank Negara and 18 years in financial services. He also participates actively in providing economic commentaries in print and electronic media. Over to you, Mr. Lee.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Shirley, for the kind introduction. Let me put out my slide to share with you what I'm going to present on over the next 15 minutes or so. Okay, basically, thank you for the MAH to invite me, Social Economic Research Center. A private think tank belong to the Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry Malaysia. And my title for today is about how industry, and more so now with the post-COVID environment, things could be even more challenging in terms of the change in the consumer protocol and even in the business environment. So there is mounting pressure for the hotelers and the industry player to continue to innovative and creative in the way of doing the business and continue to survive under this very tough environment. I think my outline for today I divided in three. First one, I want to analyze to give you a perspective of how the current hotel industry. Second, to address some of the issues surrounding hotel industry. And third, is the main topic that we are talking today, embracing AI and big data. So if you look at this two slides, one slide, the two charts there, international tourist arrival and tourism receipt and expenditure. Obviously, you look at a glance, you can see that the growth of the international tourists to Malaysia has slowed down significantly. Grew by 0.7% per annum. And the number of tourist arrivals is 26.1 million. If you compare from a year early 2000 to 2010, that time we managed to grow even stronger, 9.2%. It does tell you that this industry are facing a lot of competition from the surrounding regional peers, which means that the government had to work harder. Yeah, and look at the domestic visitor still very high, expanded by 8.9% per annum. And in terms of the foreign exchange earnings that we earn from all these international travels, for the year 2019, we managed to hit 86.1 billion. That's about 5.7% of GDP. But in terms of growth over the last 10 years, it only grew by about 4.8%. And domestic tourism expenditure still very high, 82.7 billion, and it's about an increase of 14.7% per annum from the year, compared to the period between 20. The hotel industry, let's narrow our focus into the accommodation services. Yeah, that measure the numbers, what I call the tourist arrival, how much they spend, where they stay in the hotel. So that amount has increased by about 5.8% between the year 2016 to 2019. In terms of GDP, it's quite small, 0.7%. but the numbers of employee in this segment of the hotel industry is about 1.5% of total employment. So it's about close to 222,000 people. And if you look at this accommodation services share to total tourism expenditure has declined progressively. This is something a worrying trend. To tell you that something missing in the equation on why Malaysia are losing the attractiveness to be one of the attraction. I mean, the country to visit in this region. Even has been declining progressively, 30.8%, and now to about close to 17.3%, as shown in year 2018. So supply hotel, we have the data up to first quarter. I have two set of data here. One is from the NAPIC data and one is from the Tourism Malaysia. I think there are some discrepancy in terms of the number of hotels and number of hotel rooms. But anyway, these two have to reconcile. But basically, they are showing the same trend. We saw an increased supply of the hotels and hotel rooms. Up to first quarter, there's about close to 3,403 number of hotels. The number of rooms is about close to 260,000, but all has declined compared to end 2019. Even the Tourism Malaysia data also show the number of rooms over the last from the year 2010 to 18 has increased by 7.8% per annum, and number of hotels about 9. You can see over the last few years has been on a declining trend. The occupancy rate now is hovering between 8.5% and 63.6% since 2009. And based on the latest survey done by MAH, among the members, I think the occupancy rate will continue to plunge. In line with, given the impact from the COVID-19, and it will take a while for them to recover. The occupancy rate is expected to go down further to close to 32% by end of this year. And I also look at the numbers of night stay by inbound tourists in selected country. Unfortunately, Malaysia is only about close to in between the range of 2.3 to 2.6%. And if you look at the industry total average number of nights per stay is about 7.4. So we are way markedly below this. There's something that we have to the MCO has crippled the industry. And I think based on the survey done or even the news flow that I tracked, so far we have about 7 to 8 hotels have closed down. And based on the survey done by MOH, about 15% have closed down permanently, and about more than 20-30% are likely to temporarily. So my assessment, it will take a longer while for this industry to recover, because we are not talking about just within our border, but also the cross-border is a major catalyst for the tourism to come back and also to support the hotel industry. The second thing is about, the pandemic had increased pressure on the hotel occupancy rate. Already in excess supply, so you have the competition coming from budget hotel, from all these homestay sharing platform, and that will further cannibalize the market share and putting pressure on the hotel occupancy rate. And on the online travel agency, it's a double-edged sword in the sense that they help you in the industry, given that the hotel industry need to share a substantial portion of the revenue, ranging between 10 to 30% with this agency. And the other one is the home sharing platform, give you competition from both online and offline. And if you look at the ratio of hotel to homestay for domestic traveler has fallen from 6.8 to 1 in 2018, and now it's about 28 from 28.4 in 2010. It has fallen sharply. So if you look at the HSP, hotel home sharing platform structure, the cost structure is much more lower, and that has also threatened the survival of the low star rating budget hotel. Okay, and I think the home sharing platform, sometimes they are more creative. They can provide you some very different kind of experience and feature that cannot be rivaled by some of the hotels which are continue to stay at this platform but do not take effort to innovate and become more creative and important for hotel operators to take full advantage of efficiency of operating the hotel, but also revenue optimization, but also enhance the customer service and experience. That's something that is a challenge for the hotel industry going forward. So I would like to share with you the Dawson survey finding right after the COVID-19 and the MCO. They've done a survey in terms of how are people perceive, look at this domestic travel in Malaysia. So what matters to them? I think majority has impact. I mean, this COVID has impacted their attitude towards traveling, the fear, the concern of health, the standard, whether they will get infected with COVID-19. And of course, they would like to travel domestically than overseas for the time being. I believe the overseas travel will resume back once the confidence getting restored back and people know that there will be vaccine down the road and it will be developed and I believe the confidence will come back. A majority have low confidence in using the land public transport. Transportation, to travel, because worry about, all sharing in one coach, they will do their travel arrangement. And also they are opting for hygiene, safety is the main priority. So from the survey, they also look into how they arrange their travel arrangement. So as expected, highly percentage will be independent arrangement compared to tour package. And what the platform, which is not a surprise to me, online booking site, as ranked by close to 90%, 100% of the respondents. And second would be offline, walk-in, and others. So these are the information which is good for the agency, travel agency, to plan, to strategize post-COVID-19 recovery. So now, in terms of the COVID-19, when and how to prepare for the recovery, I think first thing we have to ascertain the depth, the time of the recovery. Based on my assessment, given that this industry and it be baseline, it may be next 4 months. So until next year, even that it takes some time. I think there are a lot of different expectations. Some say it's within by first quarter of next year. So I think to give us a buffer of comfort for us to prepare, I think maybe we should prepare by up to the first half of next year. Second half will be stronger. So I think there are a few things that we have to take note here: consumer and business behavior, protocols, and business traveler and leisure, and also the customer demand will be somewhat suppressed until things are more confident. And now most of these travelers may suffer in terms of the job loss, income loss, pay cut. So they will take some time for them to rebuild the sentiment back and travel confidently. So what are the challenges for the hospitality and hotelers? I think as Chinese believe, when there's a crisis, there's always opportunity there. You must turn into a sangji, like turn crisis into opportunity. And most important, how quickly you adapt to the changes in customer behavior, and how do you revenue had lost how do you optimize your asset? Which are the assets you think can be further enhanced to create more cost synergy for you? Like in terms of how do you renovate during this low period, take advantage of some of the incentive given by government to upgrade your facility. And the other thing, to enhance service quality, the hygiene is the most important priority for anyone to visit to stay in a hotel. So this is your main priority. And how to create a different feel of customer experience. When customers walk in, they feel that I'm secure. I feel safe to stay in this hotel, compared to Airbnb, compared to other homestaying programs. So how AI and big data can transform? If you look at AI and big data, they had reshaped a lot of industry, which I think all this can be bring in and be tailored and tailored to bring changes to the hospitality sector. To connect their guests in creating a better way, and mostly it exceeded expectation in terms of very personalization, a customized type of service to the hotel, to the what call the those who stay in hotel. And big data also allow all these what I call the data scientists or analysts, and they gather the information. They even know what's the customer likes and dislikes. And how to make feel that they are coming into a place, whether they stay 1 night, 2 nights, but they feel something very different, which others cannot offer to them. And the other information, which I think the hotelers, tourism agency, they can work together, because there's a lot of information. You know, if you know how to change all your structure, unstructured, or even data, and use it the AI application, or what called the analytical application tools, you can analyze all the information about what's the customer preference in terms of the information, destination, interest, together, partnering your local travel agency, including those who are providing the what called the online delivery services, even the airline, even the tourist hotspot, and share the information and create a very different feel for the customer preference. So where are the data stored? I think the data can be captured along the way from what you call the online and the offline. I think you can browse all the relevant information from website, visiting the website, room booking, lodging. I think most important, you look at the support interaction in terms of the posting on the social media. That will give you what called the how to improve your service of the hotel. So the type of data you can see is from the web traffic data. Google Analytics is the most popular tools. And booking data, you can know what's their preference, what they like, what are the main attraction. And lodging data, the room preference, their personal preference, or when they stay in the hotel or stay in the Airbnb, what they like, what are the things that, whether they prefer a small reference corner for them to do some reading or go to gym, blah, blah, blah. So these are information. There's a lot of information there, a lot of data that we can capture, but most important, we have to invest in some of the skill, the people, the data scientists, analysts, or even you can engage all these external party to provide all these analytical tools, application. Yeah. So big data, how they transform industry. Yeah. The first thing is marketing. Obviously, what you do is you are very micro targeting, very precise what the needs from the customer, and then you tailor to that. And we can know how they use the right tools to match the preference of the guests and deliver them at the very precise time, and the speed is something. Another precision of AI targeting. You can even package an idea package for the guests, even like tell them, what the identify what their preference in air travel, and make all the arrangement for the car rental, or even like hotspots in areas that you can even tell them, okay, this is the place that you go, and from there you can branch to other places for your food tasting and as an example. And there's also virtual concierge. I think this is being currently used in hotel in New York and Tokyo. Use robots to check in, robot butler instead of the very traditional press the button. But all this will be handled by robot to hand over your toothbrush whatever pillows that you need And the virtual concierge hotel apps are something that making guests even feel like it's a whole hell of new experience that I'm coming in now. So they even can adjust for your room temperature or infrared scanner before the home make up the room. They roughly know there's the body temperature. You put all you press all the sensor button, and all this will be malfunction here and there. Smart chatbot is something where you can use it to manage the making reservation, booking tickets, ordering the meals, and etc. etc. And the other one is customer experience. Again, something similar, which you also create a very different type of feel for customer. I think it's something, I think as a customer walk into any hotel, they want something different. I mean, unless you are not those who are who couldn't care less, you stay in hotel anyway, you spend more time outside. But there are people who are who like going to hotel feel like something at home, you know, the type of smart room keys, which is something interesting. One of the innovative way is to use a fingerprint activated all the room entry system or retina scanning. I think this is about security lah. That make your hotel different from others. Understanding the customer needs, improving the customer experience, and customization. For example, personalization. You may want to know what's the preference, room preference, whether the front view or whether it's non-smoking, or then you want to know whether the customer, whether they use gym more often or they like to do dining in hotel, or they like to online. All this can be structured and help to customize the needs. And reputation management is very important. This is about image of the hotel. So you know that in this social platform, a lot of reviews, critiques will be posted on the platform. So I think it's important that you have a team to monitor the feedback, the customer feedback, and understand why the customers feel that, oh, we are not doing the best. This is the source of data, and for you to enhance your improvements of the service delivery. And third one is customer service management. So this is what I say, the marketing and communication team. I think if you look at Malaysia, I think once you go to the 3-star, those 4-star hotel, you can know that whatever feedback you have. And these people will go back and do post it on the web. And if no one monitor, capture whatever the response and do the necessary improvement, that will bring down the image of your services delivery. So these are things that should focus on. I think a lot of people feel that, you know, it's okay lah. There's so many customer, there's so many choices. If you don't come, let it be. You know, we can always have other new customer. I think that attitude will bring us down. Yeah. So just to illustrate how the qualitative data mining, this is a personalized experience to enhance value. You know, how you extract customer feedback from all the multiple sources, which I've mentioned to you, all the search engine data online thing, the website, the Facebook, blah, blah, blah. And then from there, you choose the topics, whether shuttle service, whether restaurant, taxi, discount, and then you search for the category. And flag accordingly, as what I mentioned just now, 3 aspects: understanding the customer needs, improving customer experience, and facilitating the customer services. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thanks.
Right, next with us, we have Mr. Nigel Wong. Nigel is the Honorary Secretary General of Malaysian Association of Tours and Travel Agents, which he has been there for the last 5 years. And he's also the Sec-Gen for Asean. Nigel also runs a boutique travel agency on his own. Nigel, over to you.
Thanks, Shirley. Hey guys, nice to meet you. I think we'll just keep our presentation fairly short. On Martha's side, we've actually done a couple of interesting surveys. And before I think we go into some of the more heavier topics, I'm just going to share the results of that survey with everyone. So what we've actually done to date is we have conducted a customer survey just to see what the market was thinking about during the COVID-19 period. Okay, so what we did was we partnered with our data partner Rakuten to do an online customer survey. And just to give you an idea of who we surveyed, the age group that responded mostly was between the ages of 25 to 45. Again, within this age group, you would have people who were more attuned to traveling, had the resources to travel, and also those younger families with about 2 or 3 children. Now, the income levels of this particular group was mainly from 3,000 and above. So we're talking about people who do have the means to spend and, more importantly, stay at hotels. And there'll be an interesting point about that shortly. And of course, a quick survey to see what kind of social media platforms they used. Of course, top of the list being Malaysians would be WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So I think on that note, for our agents, we will be encouraging them to use these platforms a lot more, and to perhaps pay attention to building communication channels with their customers using these 4 top channels. Now, we did ask the consumers though, what would be some of the main items that people would be looking into when the MCO back then was lifted. This survey was done at the end of April and released in early May. Top of the list, of course, was travel insurance. Now, even though this has more to do with travel agencies, its travel insurance is going to be at the top of the list. We've got another one which they said flexibility in terms of location or dates, and even till today, on the travel agency side, we have a lot of consumers asking this first and foremost. Are my bookings going to be flexible if I have to change something, or if a second or a third wave hits? After that, quickly followed by that would be no charges for changes of flight ticket dates. So from this, we can actually ascertain that people are actually hesitant to travel, not only because of the fear of the virus, but also because of the fear that once they spend money, they weren't going to be able to recover their losses should any unforeseen situation arise. Now, Shirley, what I'll do also is I'll send this, I think I've sent this over to you. Please do feel free to share it with the respondents after the webinar. It's free for everyone, so please go ahead and use it. Now, recently, when the government announced the lifting of the MCO restrictions, we wanted to find out what were some of the concerns for leisure travelers, especially once the CMCO came into effect. At the top of the list, of course, was health concerns. However, looking at the current situation, I think Malaysians have begun to forget already some of these health concerns and are beginning to interact and travel, go to malls, eat out, and we see a lot of these things gradually returning to normal, if not at full steam just yet. Next on the list would be safety concerns due to traveling, being in enclosed areas with other people during travel. The cleanliness, and I think this applies mostly to the hotels, the cleanliness of the venues, hotels, holiday sites, what were the SOPs and what were the sanitization activities that were being carried out at the venues. Now, in terms of travel trends itself, Malaysians apparently have not changed their perspective on travel even after the COVID-19 pandemic. We still see that most respondents prefer to travel in groups, mostly with family and relatives, of course, traveling in pairs and with friends and colleagues. And this actually hasn't changed even pre-COVID-19. Now, in terms of whether they were confident to travel locally within Malaysia after the MCO was lifted, 8% of respondents were only said they would travel within the next 1 to 3 months, whereas the bulk of respondents said that would choose to travel between 4 to 12 months after. So now that we're just out of the MCO, we're seeing whether any travel trends will tend to change. We will be conducting another survey shortly. Now, here's the interesting thing for hotels though. At the point in time when we did this survey, the majority of respondents actually said they would prefer to stay in 4 to 5 star or 2 to 3 star hotels, with only about 36% saying that they would stay in Airbnb. And we can probably look at this and say it's probably because in Airbnb there was no guarantee that there were proper SOPs in place, or that the venues would have been cleaned, or they would have been sanitized properly. There's also an opinion that it could also be because homeowners themselves may not be too keen to open up their homes to Airbnb stays, or may not be able to fulfill these sanitization or SOPs. And in fact, I think even to today, there are no formal SOPs for homestays or Airbnbs. I may be wrong, but definitely not Airbnbs. Okay, last but not least, within the domestic traveling sector, again, we see a lot of people who will still choose to travel on their own, by their own vehicles. And again, for hoteliers who are able to package or who are close to these different attractions, beach and seaside resorts, theme parks, resorts and hotels that cater to outdoor activity seekers or are close to national parks or nature sites. These would be most of the places where people would be willing to spend their holidays. So if your hotel is around the area, even as agencies would be looking for hotels that actually are close by to these attractions, we believe that there may be more demand as the CMCO carries on. Last but not least, the kind of information that people will be looking for while deciding on their local travel itineraries. Top of the list, of course, would be sanitization of the accommodation and cleanliness, guidelines that ensure social distancing or physical distancing in this case, steps taken to ensure the cleanliness of sites, and of course, guidelines that are offered by local and state governments. Now, this was a multiple choice question, and we can see that the majority of respondents, more than 70% of them, have multiple concerns that relate to the cleanliness and sanitization of the venues, sites, and transportation. So I think in that sense, if we're able as the travel industry, tourism industry, to put in place all these SOPs, which most of us have, but more importantly, make it well known to the consumers, the traveling public, then we may be able to sway opinion and get people comfortable in traveling sooner rather than later. Now, on the international side of things, again, with our partner Rakuten, they did a quick survey. Now, a lot of data is currently not available from overseas because most governments don't know, or most countries do not know what's going to happen within the next couple of months. But what we did manage to get from our partners was a survey done in Germany, China, and Malaysia. Just as a point of entertainment, apparently Germans opposed to Asians and Chinese are not so keen to see their colleagues at work again. So I think Malaysians are generally a very sociable lot. This would be down here under point number 4. But what would be more interesting to us is that the German market has indicated 57% of them is that they are actually keen to holiday in another country again. Now, whether this means that it's within the EU or further abroad, we do not know yet. But given previous trends and the resilience of foreign travelers from the West, we anticipate that their travel plans at some point in time will include going out of their home borders and possibly cross-continent to places such as Asia. So on that note, leading into some of the points that I was going to make, the impression that we as an ASEAN or an Asian or even Malaysian tourism stakeholder is very important now more than ever, because if we are able to stay ahead of the curve, we might be able to attract a lot of these first movers or first goers who are looking to travel abroad from other countries into Malaysia. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to stop sharing this. Okay, here we go. Stop sharing. Yeah. Okay, so I think Shirley, in our previous discussion, you asked me to share a little bit about the numbers of tourist trends that we can potentially look at, especially corporate and leisure travelers that may start to travel again. Now, what we have seen over the last couple of weeks, all over the globe, not just in Asia, is that everybody is talking about travel bubbles. Now, there is a realization that in order for a country's economy, not just the tourism sector, to survive, grow, and thrive, we have to start moving people again very, very quickly. So at this point in time, just a quick update for everybody here. multiple associations and industry stakeholders, and that includes mine, MATA, have been diligently championing the opening of borders, the concept of the travel bubble or travel between safe or green zones. And I think as announced recently by the DG of Health and also the MKN, they are already looking at opening borders, especially between close neighbors such as Singapore, Thailand, and Brunei, to allow for cross-travel by road. Now, we are also pushing for, when I say we say the industry is also pushing for travel bubbles to neighbors which are further ahead, including Australia. Unfortunately, Australia has just said that they are not going to allow people to travel for the next couple of months. We're looking at some parts of China, as this constitutes a huge market potential into Malaysia, and we have good understanding from our partners in the healthcare tourism industry, as well as our travel agencies, that there is demand for China tourists to start coming into Malaysia again. So at this point in time, cross-border travel needs to be lifted, and an announcement needs to be made a lot sooner so the industry stakeholders can prepare. That being said, however, in our discussions with various airlines, the number one problem that is going to affect the effectiveness of opening borders, especially between countries, is the cost of airfares. So as such, we have been saying that the government needs to act very quickly. Industry stakeholders, hotels, and travel agencies are already ready to accept and handle tourists on the ground, but we need to make sure that airlines can fly at a larger capacity so that they can bring in more people at an affordable cost. Now, this also goes for cross-border travel, because, for example, between Sabah, Sarawak, and Malaysia, the number one challenge now is the number of flights and the number of people that are allowed on board. I just tried to get a flight to Penang, for example, coming week, and the only times I can fly are at the godforsaken early hours in the morning and come back at the wee hours of the night. And even then, my flight tickets are more than double. So this is one thing that we're going to have to gradually see coming together, and airlines are going to have to be the first point of recovery before the rest of the value supply chain can recover. Now, in terms of borders opening, of course, we've already opened cross borders domestically, and as the first infographic that I showed, we should be able to make use of the opportunity of the domestic travel based on those travel trends to try and encourage leisure travelers, especially, to start traveling again. Now, the next part we're looking at is ASEAN travel. So again, thanks to the fact that most of our ASEAN neighbors, in particular Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, we were a little bit ahead of the game when the COVID-19 broke up in China. And we were one of the earlier first responders to put in place measures and systems to safeguard our country. Now, that has actually paid off. And most of the ASEAN countries, even though some are badly affected, right, they are probably closer to us, not in terms of just distance, but in terms of thinking and processes. And we should need to start opening up these ASEAN cross-border travel as soon as possible. Next up, of course, will be Asia, because certain countries like China also have the proper SOPs in place, and we have a bit more confidence in their ability to handle outbreaks, and therefore cross-border travel between countries like China should also be quickly reinstated. Now, after we're able to generate this kind of travel in inter-ASEAN, intra-ASEAN, inter-Asia, then we can look at opening it up to the rest of the world. Just an interesting fact, our European counterparts, I've received news recently that most of the EU has already put into place very strict SOPs on travel, but funnily enough, they look ready to allow travel abroad sooner rather than later. In fact, sooner than most of the ASEAN countries here today. So I think we can look forward to some interesting changes over the next 1 month or two. Now, quickly moving on to the issue of corporate and leisure business coming in. I believe that industry stakeholders have had multiple engagements with MITI, and we are looking at probably opening up, encouraging SOPs to allow or to facilitate corporate, in terms of just individual corporate travelers, but also the reopening of small-scale business and trade events. So I think in terms of where the hoteliers especially are at this point, your position, I think the industry, especially the travel industry agencies, were actually quite comfortable with the amount of SOPs that have been put in place. And I think that with a little bit more of exposure, we should be able to communicate the message to business travelers, at least in the country first, and then maybe later at ASEAN levels. But on that note, we do also look at the data we have, and given the number of responses that we're getting, we do not expect things to pick up even on the business side of things until at least the end of the year, given the current trends and the cost of traveling. Okay, last but not least, intra-ASEAN travel markets. I think what we can do as a travel industry, especially between partners such as hotels, airlines, and travel agencies, we need to start focusing on marketing abroad, especially to ASEAN neighbors. And this is very simple. The more confidence that we're getting locally and from our ASEAN neighbors intra-travel, the quicker it will be for us to regain some of that market share internationally when borders open up and people start to travel a bit more freely. So I think just to sum up very quickly, and I think there are other questions that Shirley, I think you're going to ask us later. In short, as far as the travel agency is concerned, we don't see a lot of movement until the end of the year, especially when airlines start to normalize their rates, God willing, and confidence in the safety of travel starts to come back. But we need to take this time to make sure that the message is sent out loud and clear. It is safe to travel, safe to stay at our hotels, and it is safe to use our transportation and our flights. So Shirley, that's all I have for now, very briefly. Thank you.
Shirley, you're muted.
Shirley, you're muted, cannot hear you.
Shirley, you're muted.
Sorry, guys, forgot to unmute. Next, we have with us Mr. Koo Lim. Mr. Koo is the chairman of MAH Penang chapter with over 20 years of senior hotel management experience. And Koo also sits in the Penang Global Tourism Board. Mr. Koo, are you around?
Yes, good morning, Shirley.
Okay, over to you, Koo.
Okay, thank you very much, Shirley. Thanks for inviting me to be one of the speakers here. And good morning to also Mr. Lee and also Nigel. I believe what I think just now, Mr. Lee and Nigel has shared very informative on their presentations. In fact, they touch a lot of points, basically on what's going on in the industry and how it is affecting the hotels and all. I have a slide presentation basically on a survey conducted by MAH, which is the Malaysian Association of Hotels. This is what I'm going to share with you guys for this moment. Okay, so this is the survey that was conducted, and we sent it out to all our members. But however, we have only 402 respondents who has participated in this particular survey. So the first one is, of course, is your hotel currently not operating? So where do you plan to resume operations? As you can see, it's about 50% of the response. Basically, they are already operating. And if you can see from June 2020, 107 hotels out of 407 are still not operating. And that is also basically, you can see from the figures here, where some of the hotels have opted to close temporarily. But like what just now Mr. Lee has also mentioned, there are some hotels who has decided to cease operations and all. On the rooms, of course, moving forward, are you planning to reduce the number of rooms in total that is on inventory? And if you say is how much, you can see from the whole thing, more than 61% says that they are not reducing. Actually, again, reducing room is not the thing that is basically that's affecting the hotel or whatever. Because why I say, I know we are going through a sort of a crisis or sort of a very slow time at this moment. But like again, we have gone through a few of this beforehand, and we are very sure that of course it will take time, but things will come back, and with the thing of the number of rooms inventory is not going to reduce. It will just carry on, and we'll be able to put how to say supply to have the number of supply of the rooms and all. Moving forward, the next question is planning to reduce the number of employees in the total permanently, and if yes, by how much? Okay, this is the one that basically that is one of the reasons why a lot of hotels is temporarily closed. I think there was also a figure given by Mr. Lee just now saying that the industry employs more than 200,000 people, employees and everything. And as you know, I would say the last maybe 5 years or so, because of the industry was going through sort of a kind of a boom. We were so short of people, wages was going high because the employees were also moving around, taking advantage of the situation and all. So basically, this all contributed to the cost of running a hotel. And as you know, Malaysia still has one of the lowest rates in the region here. So it's quite difficult. So I think that's the reason why you can see that a lot of the hotels basically have a big challenge, have on their headcount. The percentage of domestic tourism, as you can see, domestics basically still have the age here, which is at 55% as compared to international. This is the thing. But as what we know now, since the airlines are not really flying now and people are not traveling yet, of course, the percentage of the international currently will be affected a lot. So we have to depend on the domestic tourism and all. In fact, this with the RMCO, with the interstate travel, I think a lot of states did mention about their figures of people take. But for myself, in Penang, we did see that some of the hotels have recorded increase in their occupancies and things like that. For future bookings and all, basically these are the percentage that you can see, right? So from this year and on, it's still I would say the last quarter, probably you can see some improvement on that. Hopefully we can still improve and get even more people, especially on the domestic side. For the international, I believe it will be probably quite late or even next year, but it all depends on how the situation goes and how this pandemic is affecting the whole country. And like what I think was mentioned again is whether the vaccine will be available soon or not, and that would definitely boost up the confidence of people for them to travel. Okay, the markets that basically you look forward to business recovery, as you can see. We have, of course, the walk-ins, we have the website, your own websites, the hotel website, we have OTAs, we have the corporate government, we have the MAH, we have the groups, we have the airlines and others. Again, industry is still OTA dependent. And rightfully said again, I agree with Mr. Lee, what he says is a double-edged sword. Yes, the hotels depend on them, but the only thing is that the percentage or the amount of percentage that they require that we have to pay to these OTAs is pretty high. Has your hotel implemented SOPs based on guidelines for safety, health, and hygiene? I think that's the question that a lot of people have been asking. And also, I would say it's on the mind of the people who travel. For MAH, we have gone through a lot of discussion, a lot of meetings, I think on the state-wise and also nationwide-wise. And basically, we have already come out with a lot of guidelines and SOPs. I can I'll confidently say, I will use this word, that for MAH, the members, we insist that they all follow the guidelines strictly. and make sure that they take all the precautionary measures to make sure that we do it and all. That's the reason why we are so confident in the sense that we can keep on reminding the travelers, right, to not take risks, to opt to use hotels rather than you use other accommodations, for example, like the homestays or the Airbnb. For the MAH, we have, like I said just now, we mentioned, we have also come up now with the Clean and Safe Malaysian hotel guidelines. So this is, of course, after coming out with the whole SOPs and things like that, it was submitted down to MOTAC and also the Kementerian Kesihatan to get their approvals. And basically, it's already been done. This thing will be carried out. So there are basically 6 parts here, where you have number 1 is the general cleaning. Part 2 is, of course, the employees. Part 3 is the third party and other associates. Part 4 will be the guests. Part 5 will be the management and documentation. And Part 6 will be the suspected cases. As a breakdown from the section that was mentioned just now, you can see from the thing. I believe that if you want to have this, you can actually access this from MAH, if I'm not mistaken. So it's quite elaborate on the part. Besides on this, the thing that we carry out by MAH, for us in Penang, we also did manage to sort of discuss on this particular thing too. So the next thing I will show you is basically the Penang state government has also come up with their own compliance and accreditation program, which is the COVID-19, with the Penang fights COVID-19. So if you click on the link there shown on the thing, basically you are able to get all the SOPs. This also will be carried out. So basically, there are 2 types of accreditation. One is the nationwide by the MAH, and then we also, for Penang, we were going to have a state accreditation program here. So once you have that, of course, this is the logo that will be given to the hotels, and hotels will display it to show that basically they have complied with all the SOPs and guidelines, and to give the confidence to the guests who are checking into the hotels. Okay. All right. So that's the slides I've been sharing and everything. So basically, like again, as I see yes, the hotels, we are going through a tough time, but with all this in place, and as we start to build the confidence back into the market and all, first, of course, is the domestic tourism. As you can see, as I mentioned just now, you can see more and more people are starting to move. We are also glad that, for example, for Penang, the announcement of the theme parks have been, or the places of attractions have been opened up, except for water-based things and all. So there are things to do. And then there are places for them to go and also visit. Yeah, that's the thing there about this industry, in the sense that hopefully we will still be very disciplined. We will carry on. We'll do the right thing, and as we fight against this pandemic, we hope to recover and hope to get the whole thing back here. Back to you, Sherry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khoo. Khoo, stay on, because since you are here with me, I would like to raise a couple of questions with you, and we'll focus a little bit on the supply of hotel rooms for your questions. Do you think we have enough hotel rooms in Malaysia?
At this moment, more than enough. Well, I mean, again, yeah, isn't it that is the thing? It's always when you have talked about hotels, enough hotel rooms and everything, it's a supply and demand situation, right? So during the time when we were going through sort of a boom or whatever, and at one time Malaysia were receiving a lot of tourists from China, right? Thousands and thousands of people were coming, particularly every day or every other day and all. So at that time, yeah, you can see that it was difficult. Hotels were basically all booked up and all. So at that time, everybody was just jumping into the wagon and saying that, oh, market doesn't know, and whatever they have a piece of land or they have a property available, the first thing that comes to their mind, build a hotel. Okay, so I think this is it's so again, this is supply and demand. But in this case now, everybody is suffering, you know, in a sense, because like I say, people are not traveling, people are not coming out from their own respectivity to visit the tourist place and things like that. So I would say that but I mean, I hope that with this situation and everything, correct, it will also help ask the government to review or to analyze this situation, not to approve any more new hotels or projects to go for, and also to regulate these other illegal hotels or the Airbnb, because basically, you know, if you're not doing this and all, we have really I would say an oversupply of rooms, and that would create a situation where probably you'll be a price war and that kind of thing, you know. So yeah, I mean, for the rooms, I would say is a supply and demand situation. So currently, definitely we have enough, but hopefully in the future, even though when we get people back, we want to make sure that we have the right enough of rooms, and also make sure that we deliver the kind of quality of services and product. Thank you.
So, Khoo, you were mentioning about hoping that the government will restrict what they call approving more rooms coming on board. You think there are currently any guidelines being studied on the accommodation sector in curbing hotel developments, whether it's new hotels or conversion of old hotels into accommodation status?
I think I'm not at this moment. I don't think there's any particular guidelines on that part, all right, that has been coming up with the government. So, but for the old hotels at this moment, I think during this time when a lot of hotels are temporarily closed and all, I think it's maybe a window of opportunity for them to actually maybe renovate or upgrade the property and everything. So because they say during the good times and all, you can't afford to do that, because every time you do some renovations or whatever, you probably create a lot of noise. People will complain, guests will complain, things like that. So maybe on this part, the older hotels may take this opportunity to do so, to catch up. And then, as I say, there are a lot of things happening now in the technology. That's what the Mr. Lee has mentioned about all the new technology that has come in place. They may want to look into investing into that. So once the market comes back, they'll be ready for it with their upgraded property. And from there, they can also look into the possibility of raising up their rates. As I said again, Malaysia has been going through a time where our rates have not been, I think we are one of the lowest if you want to compare to even Thailand, you know, or Indonesia and all. So that's one of the things there. For the new hotels, I would say that the new property, maybe the most that we can welcome back or we would encourage would be some unique theme hotels, sorry, you know, theme hotels. That would be interesting, right? So you have something to do, because sometimes a unique theme hotel can be a reason why it will attract people to travel to come instead of just the destination itself. So maybe this is just something, a few points out of my mind that probably would be good, you know, as a guideline for you know, having for the new and old hotels.
Still on the supply of hotel rooms in Malaysia, Mr. Lee was sharing some data on what was available on the NAPIC and also on the MOTEC surveys, while you were also sharing since MCO, how many hotels are going to close from then till end of the year. So you think with the reduction of the hotel rooms due to such closures, the supply is a little bit diminished, and that would help the industry in terms of occupancy for the rest?
Okay, thank you, Sherry. I think I totally agree with Mr. Khoo assessment of the current supply and demand for the hotel industry. I think to give a perspective, you must look at this COVID. COVID has done a lot of the capacity destroy some hotel, those who permanently shut down. So you take away the supply of this additional room, yeah, from the markets. But if you look at the latest number that I tracked first quarter, in terms of the incoming supply and planned supply of hotels, for the first quarter, we saw about close to 144 units of incoming supply, which offer about 27,000 rooms. And for the planned supply, will be about another 81 units. This over supply will continue to persist. And this is due to what? Overbuilt during the boom time, you know. So now you have a sudden shock, a demand shock coming from this COVID as people are afraid to travel. And you have it helped to destroy some capacity, not for good reason, because of this sudden crunch in demand. And unfortunately, those hotel industry which continue to bear with high costs and not getting the demand to support the operating, they have to face the reality to close down. So you take away some supply from the market. But I believe the competition will still come in where? From those who unsold property by the developer. So I think in this context, some of them may, due to this short term, they may put in some supply in terms of short-term rental accommodation from their condo or their condo with a lot of good during this hardship period where they try to manage their cash flow through this COVID-19. So there could be some competition. So my assessment, hotel industry oversupply, and I totally agree, Mr. Khoo, that the authority, whether the state authority, the state government, the municipal council, have to relook at all the whole ecosystem of supply and demand for the hotel industry. As you know, you look at the numbers of tourists in Malaysia, it's only 26.1 million. Can't even match the 34 million population we have. So we should set a even higher target, maybe one population, 1 Malaysian to 2 or 3 tourists. So that can help to absorb the oversupply of the hotel industry and room in Malaysia. And now with this COVID, it will take some time. I think we must agree that confidence has to come back and the demand will start to pick up. During this period, is good. In the new normal period, I think it's good for the hotel industry. One aspect very important. So you have to do some rebranding, renovation in order to reposition when the industry recover. So there's a lot of asset which you can look into whether you can make it more competitive. Like what Mr. Khoo say is very interesting. Team hotel concept. Those are 3-star, 4-star. Maybe this is a good time for you to refurbish and upgrade and look in how to apply the use of technology to make a different feel or experience for customer. You know, this is something that you should not take during this crisis. Then you start to like pull back and lay back. So it's important for you to plan and ahead to strategize for the recovery. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Lee. Mr. Khoo, looking at what Mr. Lee have just mentioned on rebranding, I think that is part of an area where maybe hotels may want to look at diversifying its business model from traditional, conventional rooms dependent. How do you feel about this, Mr. Khoo? I mean, is there some other ways hotels can diversify their business model?
I mean, to be honest, again, what is a hotel, right? The concept of hotel from day one of historical thing is basically a provider of accommodation for travelers and tourists. So the other things like F&B, like meals and or other services are basically provided in the hotel is actually to complement the whole property and things like that. So I mean, it's still, I would say that the hotels depend on the rooms. But when I mentioned about team hotels and all, it could be something different. Like for example, like okay, let's take this Hard Rock, for example. You know, it's basically the team is on music. It's talking about rock and roll. We talk about the previous things and all. So people sometimes tend to just go there is because they want to to enjoy the atmosphere, the ambience, maybe also to learn a little bit of history about some of the pop stars or the rock stars and that kind of thing and all. So, but at the day and thing, it's still rooms. I would say rooms is basically the biggest contributor, and as one thing, as you know, it's the main sector where we all the hotels enjoy the profits when it comes to the from the revenue of the hotel. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Koo. I'd like to now move on to the demand side of our hospitality industry and the rooms. So I'd like to pose some questions to Nigel. Nigel, before I pose the questions to you, there was a question from the floor that asked that the survey results that you were showing us in your presentation, what is the number of respondents who have replied to the survey, and were these respondents mainly from the Klang Valley? Nigel?
Okay, sure, no problem. We did a survey of 500 respondents across the country. Of course, the major part, I think, looking at my data here, about close to 57% were from the Klang Valley area, and the rest of it, about 11% were from Penang, Johor, and Sabah and Sarawak. But given that, looking at our Mata Fair data and some of the surveys we've done and data we collected from our Mata Fairs, generally the trend tends to follow whatever the Klang Valley trends are. So actually the number of responses we got from Klang Valley do actually reflect what the general consumers are thinking.
Okay, so Nigel, from your surveys and from your understanding, do you think Malaysia will have enough tourists to fill our hotel rooms for the next 6 to 12 months?
I like what Mr. Koo said earlier on. Do we have enough hotel rooms? Yes. Do we have enough tourists to
Enough
fill
tourists?
hotel rooms? I don't think so. Not yet. But given the way it is now, it's actually too early to look at a definitive yes and no. We're still in a point where even domestically we're in a bit of a flux. There is demand, we do know, but until travel, especially by air, becomes more affordable, we will not be able to see any definitive trends in even domestic travelers, especially cross-state and across from Borneo to Peninsula and vice versa.
Okay, so with this unbalanced trend of supply and demand, what do you think, we should do with unconventional tourist accommodation? We have plenty of short-term rentals, especially Airbnb, and what we call the influx of condos who are now turning to homestays. Already in Airbnb, we have about reportedly 53,000 listings last year, and likely it will rise up to about maybe 60,000 this year. What should we do about them?
Okay, interestingly enough, of course, during this particular period, even the homestays, or I would say unlicensed homestays, and the Airbnb homeowners have also got next to nothing as well, because people are just not traveling. So they're essentially in the same problem area that everyone is in, right? However, the one up that I think the registered hotels or licensed hotels have over the Airbnbs is that even to date, Airbnb has not been able to guarantee a certain level of safety with respect to the current pandemic, right? There is no way they can do that, and there is no way the individual homeowners can guarantee it, simply because there is no standard certification like what the hoteliers have. So that being said, I think in response to your question, now is the best time. And I say this also because the industry also does not benefit from this so-called home sharing economy. All right, the home sharing economy is people got a spare room, they got a spare apartment, they buy it and they treat it as a rental property, but very little added value, right? And that goes the same for the rest of the tourism industry players. Travel agents, for example, stand to gain nothing we can't collaborate with Airbnb simply because of the nature of the way it's run. Too many different homeowners. Airbnb doesn't do B2B, definitely. I don't think they will do it because it's difficult to control. And again, there is no level of service that the travel agents can rely on. Okay, so I think now is the best time for the industry, those who are legitimate players, to push forward with this opportunity to say that travel is safe as long as you use legitimate licensed players who have the SOPs in place. And on that note, even travel agencies and other players like us and airlines will be more than happy to cooperate. So I think it's the best time to go for to get a one-up on this so-called sharing economy situation.
Yes, Nigel, agree with you, which is why I think Mr. Khoo has shared mass clean and safe guidelines. So a little bit to add on the clean and safe guidelines, which is now being circulated by MAH to all our members. The clean and safe guidelines is going to be certified endorsed by MOTEC as well. And we are now in the midst of appointing a bureau who will be conducting audits on the hotels before certifying them clean and safe, after which hotels should be encouraged to use this clean and safe banner in all their promo ads and marketing campaigns and so forth, so that it would enhance the safety and hygiene status of all our hotels to the tourists or to business travelers or to whomever want to stay in a hotel. This will be one up against all the other independent homestays that may not have this in place. So that would help a lot, Nigel, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'll move a little bit now to our big data for Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, are there any data science involved in industry planning? You know, you've shared quite a number of analytics and statistics just now. I mean, is it, you know, easy, or this data easy to get?
Okay, just to share with you, I think there's a lot of the sectors, the hospitality sector has been using performance enhancing AI and data science in every aspect. I think hoteliers are trying to make full use of what the available analytical tools or application in order to how to make more efficient management of their resources. You know, the resources are limited, and how to design and adopt a very revenue enhancement strategy, even to the extent of how to reduce the energy consumption in the hotel, which is the main bulk of this operating cost. They even look into like how to automate the workflow using what you call the smart virtual assistant. I think if you look at the industry in Malaysia, in hotel industry, are still very labor intensive. Partly because our wages are low. Workforce, human. So I think maybe it's time for us to look into how to use AI to automate some of the operation aspect. So I will highlight a few things on the revenue management side, how you can maximize the revenue management in times of all this uncertainty where costs are still rising. So what they use is that they use a tools that called data science, where they just using all the big data, whether the unstructured or structured one, and put together in the system where they can predict the demand and look into the consumer behavior pattern. And hotels like global chain hotel like what? Like the Marriott International. I think they've been using all the data scientists and analysts and try to come out a model to predict the pricing model using data from their hotel and also other competitors. This is one example. Second, in terms of operational costs, we know that now revenue is hard to come by. Operating expenses. Performance evaluation type tools, what we call the data visualization tools. Could be a Google Charts, infogram, it could be a Chartist, could be something can handle a lot of big data and churn the information. And you collect this information from various departments, the operational data, and from there you can monitor and evaluate and how to improve the performance. And the other point that I also want to mention is about branding. As I mentioned to you, nowadays, the social media, there's a lot of channels where they can put a lot of feedback about the hotel they stay. And the negative one, if you don't react immediately, it will sink into the mind of the customer. And by the media, social media, they can just disseminate to all the friends, and people will stay away from staying in hotel. So what you do now is you use the AI and use the one software which is very important. They call NLP. This is called the Natural Language Processing Solution, where they interact between the computers and the humans using all the natural for the information, and straight away they produce, and at a speed which they can even to outcompete the exchange of information about the services. Assuming that you got information, the social media talking about hotel, this service is very bad lah, so you have to quickly put in place this solution and ask your communication marketing team and get the information out at a very fast speed in order to rebuff all this negative exchange of information about services offered by your hotel. Okay, this one. The other one is about competitive analysis. Again, same thing. You monitor all the social media, the feedback about your hotel, and use the AI to generate information at a very fast speed, which is even faster than human. By the time you get information, but the AI can help you to analyze and do the necessary brain restoring image restoration. Shirley?
Yeah, we lost you for a second, Mr. Lee. Is there a one-stop shop that can guide or even offer that form of services to hotels who are keen to do that?
I think it's about how your IT team, I don't think there's a one-stop center, but you have to do a lot of your background checking, which due to this webinar, I've been doing a lot of reading about to get more information about how big data and AI. From there, you can see Malaysia industry, except for those international supply chain, I think those who are at the low rating, I'm sure based on the survey, you can confirm further, maybe MOH can do a survey and how ready we are to embrace big data and AI. I would think the outcome would be very low, low adoption. So this is something that going forward, yeah.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
I lost you for a short moment just now. So, okay, one other question. We hear about supply. There's a glut of hotel rooms in Malaysia. And we also hear that the property glut, there's also a property glut. Plenty of condos are now up for rent or for sale or for whatever purposes they want to do. With both sides supplying room inventory or accommodation having a glut, what do you think this balance will create? I mean, how do we manage this?
No, as I mentioned earlier on, you have the property side is still oversupply. And also based on the incoming supply and those planned supply for the hotel rooms continue to build up, I believe these imbalances will continue. And more so during this time where you are facing a sharp fall market, there will be more pressure on the hotel occupancy rate, which is already since 2009, we are hovering between 55 to 63%. And based on your MOH survey, the occupancy rate will slowly coming back, very small quantum, maybe about 32% by end of this year. That depends on how fast the confidence of traveler coming back, not just the intra, but also from outside. So I believe there will be more competition for the hotel industry, and there will be more capacity will be destroyed. You are talking about, you look at during the SARS, we have not seen how hotels still can survive. But as of now, 7 to 8, these are long, established hotels which can't even survive. What else you're talking about? Those who are at the low end, which do not don't have enough cash flow, even at least amount 50%, I would think. Yeah, 50% break-even kind of point. So I believe there will be a lot of pressure on the hotel industry. Not that I'm very pessimistic, but as I see as what Mr. Koo has earlier highlighted, there's overbuilt, oversupply, and the numbers of the tourists to come in to fill up the gap, even plus the domestic side, I think we still have plenty room to offer. And the only thing you may see downward pressure on the room rates, but more so Malaysia is cheaper compared to other countries. Ringgit is 4.2. So I believe hoteliers have to price it nicely. The local one lower and the foreign one higher. And I think government have to do something more to support the hotel industry. Look at Thailand, what they do. They still give subsidies on the room rates. We only, but in terms of the room rates, in order to encourage the domestic travelers to come back, because the only thing you need the domestic traveler to come back first before you waiting for the foreign travelers to come in. So I think the only thing that they can do is to try to craft another package to support the hotel industry, because I believe the hotel industry survival will depends on first the tourism side and also the aviation side. And that's why I always tell people you'll be last to recover. And for them to last to recover, they need a lot of buffer in terms of the financial support side. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lee, I'd like to move to address one question from the floor for perhaps Nigel, even the other panelists, if you have some ideas on how to answer these questions. What do you think is the tourist arrivals for Malaysia for year 2020, and what is ahead for 2021? In 2019, we are at 26.1 million. You think Malaysia can drive demand, and what do you think Malaysia can do to drive demand and arrivals? Nigel or Lee?
Let me start first. Since I've done something on this, I think if you look at the target, I mean, prior to the COVID-19, the tourism target, tourist arrival is 30 million, right? 30 million. But now we don't have Visit Malaysia here, more so with the COVID-19. I think the even first quarter numbers is not out yet. I think okay, let's talk about data statistics. I think the problem with the Ministry of Tourism, they have to be timely publish all the tourist arrival data. I think that's the most important information that in order to support the industry in terms of planning. So I believe definitely the fall, there will be a sharp decline in the number of tourist arrival for this year. We may see even be lower than during the what is MAS accidents, what called the crash time, where the tourist big dip. I think this dip in tourist arrival will be even bigger relative to the MAS and also to the SARS. And what we hope now is that the recovery will be hopefully by first half of next year. And what Nigel shared with us about the green bubble travel, hopefully some of the ASEAN country will take the lead, and waiting for the other the West country, the European country to settle. Because what we see now, the European country, they are more travel within the region rather than out from the region. And unfortunately, our favorite place to travel is always Australia, and they only allowed to open next year, not even by this year, no, next year. So it's quite a big negative for the tourism, aviation industry, and also for the tourism side. So I don't have a number to pin now, but I think you should prepare for a big, sharp decline in the number of tourist arrivals. Definitely will not be.
Nigel, you got any forecasts or statistics that you might be able to have that you can share?
Unfortunately, Shirley, as Mr. Lee has already put it, there is no way to give a figure. Basically, we all know that as far as tourist arrivals are concerned, in January, just before COVID, everything went to zero. So again, given the current trend and the fact that borders are still not open, we still can't accept any inbound tourists except for repatriations. Again, we're basically looking at, in short, a total loss for this year. So basically, as Mr. Lee said, just be prepared to discount whatever figure you have in mind and work on it as if you're going to get nothing.
Correct, correct.
So this one is just a matter of discussion within us here. We are not sure whether we are able to get our government to assist in any way to our demands or our requests. But between us as panelists here, what do you think? What can we suggest to MOTAC Malaysia that can do to help drive demand and arrivals from whether it's ASEAN or even the rest of the world over the next 12 months in order to help fill up the rooms that we now have, which are empty?
If I may, Shirley, earlier on, I think even together with Ma, in our earlier meetings with the ministry, we have already said to the ministry that we are behind the curve in this respect. Take Singapore, for example. Singapore has a very good system where STB itself drives the forecast and the planning of the tourism industry through data. Now, the thing is, we in Malaysia are not, how should I put it, we have the facilities available to us. We have the partners and the players who are willing to get on the bandwagon and assist. But unfortunately, number one, we're not too sure whether the ministry has the proper infrastructure in place, number one. And like Mr. Lee said, even if they did, what kind of data is being released to the industry and whether it is timely. So one of the propositions that we did give to the ministry was, instead of having the industry try to get their own data under the ministry itself, and this data needs to be not retrospective, not like how many tourists did we have in Q1 or Q2 in 2019. That is a very old way of data analysis. We should actually be looking at integrating with systems and getting data that allow us to predict or forecast demand, thereby allowing the industry to respond accordingly and to tailor products and services for a particular market. So I think from our end, we suggested that, and I believe most of the industry is also keen if the government were to take the lead on this.
Yeah, recently the new stimulus package, the Penjaja package, which Tan Sri Muhyiddin announced that he has allocated X number of billion for the tourism industry. So far, nothing has been planned out yet on what they're going to do. But I guess associations like us, MATA, and the like, should quickly move forward to recommend to MOTAC and Tourism Malaysia on how they can assist the tourism industry to develop further in these tiring times. Countries like Japan are subsidizing tourists on their hotel stays, and like you mentioned, Singapore has done something, Thailand has done something. I think Malaysia should also do something. So, Mr. Lee, are you in any way, you have any research statistics to say what could be included in those plans that we can suggest to the ministry?
No, I think Chamber in the midst of coordinating a list of all these latest proposal from the various industry plus your MAH and also the other industry association. And I think in the midst of submitting to the government, they have to get the endorsement from all the members around the supporting financial support. Like already mentioned in the Penjana, but we hope that they can extend further until the another end of next year. So we think that it should be taking a longer while for the industry to recover, and then there will be also medium-term planning, which look into the short term is what Nigel has mentioned, the green bubble. I think I was fortunate to be in the task force chaired by Mustafa, where they go through some of the initiative put forward by the Ministry of Tourism together with industry player. But I think the thing that I find Malaysia in tourist industry are lacking of is the tourism products. I think we are very weak in the marketing side. We are also very weak in terms of the front line. When we're talking about the touching point, when any international tourists come to the side, we are very lacking. I don't know, maybe we are short of people who can be versatile, can be in multi-languages to handle some of the very simple Q&A from the tourists. And the other thing is on the services side, which I think we are also not up to that standard compared to other countries like within ASEAN that I visited. So I don't know, it's about attitude. I think attitude of our people, we feel that maybe we don't have the anxiety to get the higher numbers of target. That's why you see a Malaysia target is always about 26 million, 30 million. We do not even want to set the target which is 2 times our population. I mean, it's a tall order, but why don't we challenge ourselves? If Thailand can get some numbers, why not we? And the other thing is more related to how the culture side. I mean, if you say that I restrict your entertainment center, why should I come here? I come here, I want to enjoy. Morning I go and jalan-jalan, at night, evening I have to go and drink. If you consistently apply the top, everything will be closed by midnight. No way. I don't think people will come to you. So these are a lot of mindset have to change. But more so now with the COVID-19, I think the first priority is about safety standards. So in the new normal, when I go into hotel, first thing I want to know in terms of what? The food safety. In terms of the ingredients that you're preparing offered by your F&B. So you must have the high standard hygiene. So everything has to change now, no? So when I walk into a hotel, maybe the restaurant serving me, everything has to be single portion, not the sharing portion, because of the culture of the sharing is disrupted by the social distancing, by the concept of COVID. So everything, the menu have, which I think hotel have to bear this in mind. Your tourism product. First thing in mind, you have to assure that when I come in here, I go to any orchard farm, any visiting spot places, I feel safe. No, I will not be getting this, because you must understand this thing will be there at least until next year. So no matter what you say, you put a banner to say I'm very safe, I'm very I have a best SOP, but that's not good enough, because we are in a low touch economy. People feel very nervous when they are seeing crowds. When you go and check in the hotel, you must have the most efficient way of checking without me queuing and in a long queue or crowding places. I worried, about my health. This is what I can say. I think there's a lot of things we short term, we have to do what we're supposed to do, like SOP, the health conscious, but the medium term, we have to strategize. We have to look at why people like to go there, don't come here. Is it because of visa? Through our dialogue, visa free for China. Then government worry about influx. That you can control by the number of flights to China. China to Malaysia. You don't worry about the people. What you want is the people to come here, right? So you have to start like what Hong Kong. Why they can track those who are overstay, they will be deported. This is about your execution, how your custom do the job. If you have a good device to track those who overstay and use all the agent to help them to overstay, all this will have to be punished. Then people will not will comply fully, and then you give visa free, and they will just come here as a tourist. They will overstay and do something else. Yeah, these are few things.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So you were touching a little bit on the new normals in the tourism industry. So I'd like to bring this new normal thing to the hospitality industry and particularly to hotels. Mr. Koo, you think what is the new normal for us in the hotel industry from now on?
I prefer the normal, not new normal. I mean, honestly, call me old-fashioned or whatever, and all those things and all. I've already visited some hotels and all, and even the other attractions and even shopping malls. And what they are doing now, of course, they are following all the new normal guidelines and things. You ask my personal opinion, I don't like it. Okay. Anyway, but but like I say, we have to do it because as we have to make sure that this particular virus is different from what we have been experienced before, like SARS and everything. It did not spread so fast. During the time when we were facing SARS, whereas this pandemic, it really goes at a very rapid space. Another thing is that social media doesn't help. Okay, so a lot of as you can see, a lot of fake news has been shared, fake information and everything, and people just get to be panic. They panic and this has caused fear into them, so they are afraid to go out. They are afraid to even step out of their house. In fact, I got a particular friend. Until today, he has told me he has not stepped up from the house. He dare not come out of the house.
Very discipline.
Yeah, exactly. So this new normal thing, of course, that's the reason why. But like it or not, we have to do it. We have to have the guidelines that we have come up with. Everything. A lot of people have brainstormed. People have inputted all these guidelines and everything. We have also run through with the authorities, right? So basically, we have to do it first until the day when it comes. I say we are able to control this pandemic by, like you said, is either we have discovered a vaccine to do it, or this, as I was told that this thing is like have a life cycle. So the life cycle may drop as it goes along, but how long it will take, I don't know, seriously, So, So basically, for the new normal thing and all, I would still think that we just have to follow along. And like I say, MAH has come out with the guidelines and things like that. We would definitely encourage all our members to follow it and to get the accreditation. And then besides that, for example, Penang State, they have come up with their own initiative. We will also do it also. So it's a double accreditation. So for the guests, I think they will feel very confident that you have one accreditation from national, and you also have one accreditation from local Penang side. Thank you.
Okay, so still on this new normal thing, this question popped up from the floor. We all know that even with the RMCO, the government is still forbidding hotels to serve food on buffet, right? So, breakfast is one of the key meal of the day for hotels all around Malaysia. So how will hotels now serve breakfast? And how does that actually impact that guest experience? We saw that chart about guest experience, customer experience from Lee as well. So from a hotelier's point of view, this breakfast serving on tapao, on a packed breakfast basis, is that going to give any form of guest experience?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I say I don't like it, because you see, like breakfast, it does play a part, even though you may not say it, because that's why I say for when I was running or managing some resort hotel, I emphasize basically on the spread, the breakfast spread, and the quality of the breakfast spread. And I tell you, just because of that, it plays a very critical point for the guests to come back again. Right, I have seen a lot of reviews that they say that they have the best breakfast ever, from their experience staying in other hotels and all. So, but regrettably, at this situation, the buffet is out. No, thank you again, like you say, social media. Of course, why is because I'm sure you all have seen the video that was shown, that was basically made by this Japanese counterpart, and they have this what infrared thing or whatever showing you that when you touch something, suddenly when they close off the lights, your basically you can see that the whole thing, your marks or whatever is all over the place and things like that. That's the reason why it says that, oh, that's where the virus is able to be spread, on the different areas. So your risk is higher on that part. So if you say currently, I think the hotels are doing set meals, the kind of thing. So, but if you ask my opinion again, that's not like experience. Of course, hopefully the food must be prepared hygienically. That's what Mr. Lee did mention it. Of course, not only hygienically, delicious. It has to taste good. It doesn't mean that you clean it so well until the food doesn't taste nothing at all. So it still has to taste good, clean, and I say the person who serves you also have to be following the SOPs and guidelines to make sure that they have the right attire or the right way of serving you and the kind of thing, But again, as I pray hard, I hope buffet will come back.
Okay, thank you, Khoo. I'd like to move to Nigel. There was a question about Chinese tourists. We all know in a survey which was conducted by MA a little bit early on the time when MCO just sets in. We did a survey to find out how many percent of Chinese arrival losses did hotels actually receive in terms of cancellation. And I believe the numbers are something like between 17 to 20% from various hotels around Malaysia. So the questions raised from the floor is, can the industry hope for Chinese tourists to return to Malaysia? What do you think, Nigel?
Actually, that's a good question. In terms of what's the word for it? In terms of the robustness of the Chinese market, and given that they if you look at situations like the MH incidences, for example, at its very worst at the time where there was what do you call it, perception of Malaysia, that actually recovered fairly quickly. And then in between that, we had other incidences, isolated incidences in Sabah, in Borneo, where there were accidents. And again, some perception there, and that also quickly recovered. To me, the Chinese market, as far as travel agencies are concerned, apart from those one or two key, disasters, even after that, the Chinese market rebounded very quickly. So I think in hindsight, given the way that the Chinese tend to travel, we do believe that once cross-border travel is allowed between the two countries, that we will see the return of the Chinese market to Malaysia. Secondly, also it's because in a survey done, I can't remember by whom recently, late last year, the Chinese actually do see Malaysia as one of the more comfortable countries to go to. Even more so than Singapore, for example, simply because Malaysian Chinese culture tends to be a little bit more authentic than Chinese culture in other parts of the world. So there's already an affinity for the country. Last but not least, we've also been in touch with our health tourism counterparts. And the Chinese are also, they do make up a large number of health tourists coming to Malaysia. Bookings have not been cancelled. And actually, there have been requests by the Chinese counterparts as to when they can return to Malaysia to resume treatments and follow-ups with their the hospitals and whatever that they're doing here. So in short, we think that once the Chinese are able again to travel to Malaysia, we will see probably a quicker return of the Chinese market compared to most of our other inbound segments.
Okay, one last question to Nigel before we will wrap up our webinar for today. This is on airlines. This question comes from the floor. You talked a little bit about airlines just now already, costing quite a lot more. And here the question was that how is airlines going to help boost domestic tourism when alone, if you just travel to Sarawak, it costs you like 100% more than what you would have paid the previous time. So what should the airline be doing to help domestic tourism?
Good question. Look, we've seen some activity from airlines such as AirAsia, for example, recently offering the 399 travel as much as you want until March, right? So I think certain airlines like AirAsia will be conducting their own commercial promotions as such, you know. Again, whether they're able to supply the demand, that remains to be seen. But in short, I think in answer to your question is, in our recent meetings with some of the airlines, we understand that they're also in a very tight spot. The impact to their bottom line has been severe. They've also laid off a lot of manpower. So returning to normal capacity is going to take quite a bit of work. Now, what we have suggested, though, is that to the government that a lot more emphasis needs to be provided in making sure that our national carrier and our local low-cost carrier, AirAsia, is able to weather this storm. Because again, as the more support that they can give to the airlines, the quicker we can push, or the government or the airlines can push for a reduction in the price of tickets, because it's all about load factor, right? That being said, again, it depends on demand. So if the government and the industry as a whole is able to project an image to the domestic market that it is once again safe, and not only safe, but profitable, all right, especially for business travelers to resume travel, then we will start to see demand climb. And again, then the airlines can start to reduce fares and bring it to some form of normalcy. It's a tough question to answer, Shirley. In short, it really is a chicken and egg scenario. It is a balancing of supply. The only thing that we can hope for as a travel industry is to see what little steps we can take in order to regain consumer, consumer confidence, all right, in traveling again via air. That's the most I can see at this point.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. I believe we have already addressed most of the questions that has been raised from the floor, and it's also time up for us to wrap up our session for today. So I'd like to thank Nigel Wong and Mr. Lee Heng Gui and Mr. Kubu Lim for sharing your valuable insights on our subject and topic today, as well as being here with us for the last 2 hours to talk about your views on the subject matter. The slides that we have just shown already with MAH, for our members who would like to have a copy of those slides, please officially write an email to our MAH Secretariat. In fact, copies of those slides and the video, as well as the Q&As that were raised, will also be shared via email to our members accordingly. So yes, thank you very much again to all our speakers and to all the participants who have logged in. At the max, we saw about 160 participants coming in. Our next session will be held on the 2nd of July at 11 a.m. of our webinar series. And the topic that we'll cover in the next session is Future of Hospitality Education. We will have 3 more panelists that will join us in this subject. That will include our MAH Acting President, a GM of a 5-star international hotel, and the Executive Dean of Taylor's University. So I'd like to bid all of you a good day. I hope you have enjoyed our webinar session for today. And see you all again on our 3rd session on the 2nd of July 2020. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Shirley.
Bye.